I mean, I dig that. And I know for years it felt like Dana White and the UFC wanted to sort of keep their distance. And perhaps that's because they didn't want the accusations that Pride had gone through, where, hey, I think some of these fights are worked. And maybe just from a gambling standpoint, they knew if we can prove that this is all on the up and up, whatever that means, then maybe that'll make our business bigger through gambling. Now, of course, it feels like up is down and left is right because WWE and UFC are under the same umbrella. Do you find that interesting after all these years, or did you think it was inevitable even back then?
Certainly ironic, Conrad. Certainly ironic at how that business has grown. Like I said earlier, Dana's done an amazing job of building a sports franchise that's second to none. And ironically, as you alluded to, uh, the same managing group, the same ownership group owns both companies, UFC and WWE. Uh, at least that's how I read it. And so anyway, I it worked out. It worked out really well in the long haul. In the beginning, I think it was the best. It was what was best for business. Uh, and then Dana and Vince developed a compatible relationship, and that didn't hurt anything. So because both of them respected the other's promotional abilities, promote and all that stuff, uh, it worked out great. So we got lucky on that deal, and so did they. But the nice thing at the end of the day, Leon and Kenny both make great paydays, and they built to another match, and I thought that was smart.
I do want to ask you, when it comes to the financial details, it's written in the Observer that he believes that the WWF got paid 100 grand to send this Vader Shamrock match over. Does that sound right to you?
That's feasible. That's feasible. I don't remember the exact number, but it's certainly feasible and believable. But at the time, you got to remember, uh, you got to remember what we were going through at the time: cash flow problems. And so to create a payday of 100 G's was impressive. And it also got two of our guys significant paydays, and it created an awareness for both talents. I didn't know who lost in that whole equation. We got a good payday. Two of our talents made good paydays, uh, and our two of our top guys had become two of the biggest stars in Japan. Uh, just without TV, they're stars, and people paid to see them. So and we knew that after Shamrock and Vader had that match in Tokyo, that they had the opportunity to return it into some figure without all the cooks in the kitchen.
Right.
So it was just good booking. I mean, there was nothing weird about it. It was old school pro wrestling booking.
What's interesting too is, because of where it's happening and his pedigree, I mean, people really buy into this. But I, for one, at the time thought, okay, I don't know that they used a blood capsule, but coughing up blood, that's an interesting finish. We're trying to simulate internal bleeding. Little did I know that no, he's hurt for real. They think that this was a punctured lung. It's not. It's actually a lung infection that he's coughing up this blood from. So that was not part of the show. And that maybe is the real reason that Vader starts freaking out like, oh God, we're in the other end of the world. And
Well, what would you normally do if you're wrestling somebody or performing with somebody, and all of a sudden your adversary is spitting up blood when it was not planned? It could make you a little uneasy because you don't know how badly that injury could be. So a lot of side stories in this whole Shamrock Vader situation. I will say that they did a hell of a job in wrestling, fighting a stiff, snug match. because again, neither would have been happy if it had gone another way, where it had been, where it had not been physical,
Right.
and intense. And I loved it because that was right down my wheelhouse. I think some of my best work was during Shamrock and Vader's match. So it was a different formula. It's a different style. And I think I increased my value of the company at that point in time by having to call a little different style of match. So I had to adjust my game. And I'm glad I had the ability and the desire to do it, because it was, I think that helped the match. I couldn't call that match like I would a regular pro wrestling match. It had to have its own nuances, and we sought those out, and there, so we left it.
Let's talk about how we're going to start winding down 1997 with Ken Shamrock. He finds himself at the Survivor Series. Yes, this is that Survivor Series in Montreal. It's Ken Shamrock teaming with Ahmed Johnson and the Legion of Doom to wrestle the Nation of Domination. And it's written here, the purpose of this match was to get Shamrock over as one of the top echelon guys. And it seemed that goal was accomplished. Shamrock and LOD got huge pops coming out. I can't figure out exactly why it is, but it's undeniable that there is something about Maivia that makes an excellent heel. This is before he's The Rock all the way, by the way. He is a bad guy, but we're going to see him become a megastar in 98. Anyway, Maivia and Shamrock both did a great job in this match, which started out as kind of weak, but ended up being fairly good. It comes down to Shamrock and Animal versus Maivia and Brown. Eventually, we see Gunn and James come out. Eventually, they'll be known as the New Age Outlaws. They're wearing the LOD spiked shoulder pads that they stole on Raw. Animal's going to jump out to fight with both of them. Gunn throws powder in Animal's eyes and leads to the count out. And now it's Shamrock against both guys. He pins D'Lo with a belly-to-belly after 17 minutes. And we're teasing the finish of Team Canada versus Team USA. And Rocky Maivia immediately hits Shamrock from behind with a chair, but Shamrock kicks out for the pin. He delivers an incredible-looking groin shot for a near fall and a float-over DDT for another fall. Shamrock blocks a second DDT and turns it into a Northern Lights suplex. Then he hits a Frankensteiner and gets the tap out with the ankle lock. And during the commentary, Jim Ross on several occasions was really trying to position Shamrock up to the next level, even hinting that he could be the top star in the promotion at some point. 2 3/4 stars. Yeah, I want to ask you about this, Jim, and this will make sense to you because you and I are both big sports guys. Sometimes in the NFL, if we see a franchise use their first round pick to land a big money contract and a big money star, and maybe they're not really ready for prime time. Think of like the quarterback position. When we have this major investment at quarterback, there becomes pressure on the franchise to see that guy play to quote unquote justify the salary. Is that what's happening with Ken Shamrock? Did you guys really think he was ready to be the top star, or are you pushing him that way because you're paying him that way? If that makes sense.
I think we thought that he had the potential, as always, from that original 3-year contract, that he was going to be a player. How fast he got to the starting lineup, how fast he got to pay-per-view main events was obviously still to be determined. But we always had confidence in Kenny, and the only thing that the only person that didn't have confidence in Kenny was Kenny. So I loved his upside. I did think he had the potential to be one of the biggest stars we had. It's just, we couldn't get him situated to be a pro wrestler who had little seasonings and spices of a pro wrestler. He still had that in his guts. He still had the desire to go out and make those potential massive paydays in Japan specifically. and that would eventually broaden. But Kenny wanted to be he wanted to be an MMA star. He liked fighting. He liked fighting, and so that's kind of where we were. The battle was between Shamrock versus Shamrock.